Let's continue on with the homework video guide for section 5.4 with question number 15. And for this question, it costs a company $2,140 to produce 500 widgets, and it's going to cost $3,660 to produce 900 widgets. For question 15a, I need to find the fixed cost for producing widgets, and fixed cost is really the y-intercept, right? So basically for the y-intercept, that basically means if you have 0 widgets, what is the cost? All right, so that's the plan for part A. All right, so if I use the data that's given to me in this problem, we know that 500 widgets, that's going to cost $2,140, and I know that 900 widgets would cost $3,660. Okay, there's several ways where you could solve this particular problem here. Regardless of what method you use, you would definitely need to figure out the slope. And if you want to figure out the slope, we can easily use the slope formula. So m, which stands for slope, is really y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So here is your y2 value, here's your y1 value, here's your x2 value, and this is your x1 value. If I went ahead and inserted those numbers into the slope formula, we would get 3,660 minus 2,140 all over 900 minus 500. Okay, and if I went ahead and did my calculations there on the numerator there, if I do 3,660 minus 2,140, that would give me 1,520. And on the denominator, 900 minus 500, it would be 400. All right, so there's different ways you could go on in terms of solving this problem here. One thing you could do is you could continue reducing this slope to give you good numbers to work with. So how about we change this 400 to a 100? And you do that by dividing the denominator by 4. And that means you can also divide the numerator by 4. So 1,520 divided by 4 is going to be 380. All right, and this is a very good ratio here because what that means is that if you can read the slope here very carefully, it means for every 100 widgets, it costs $380. Okay, so how do I apply that to this particular problem here? Well, if I want to go down to 400 widgets, which is 100 fewer than 500, I can simply just subtract $380. So 2,140 minus 380, that's going to be 1,760. And then if I went ahead and went to 300 widgets, I can subtract another 380, and that would give me 1,380. If I went down to 200, I can subtract another 380, and that's going to be 1,000. And then 100 would be 620. And then finally, for the y-intercept here, I take 620 and minus another 380, and that gives me 240. All right, so that's how you can find your y-intercept there. It will be 240, and you can do that by simply using the just general common sense here with understanding what the slope means. Now, another way that you could do this particular problem is some students just go right ahead and they just kind of find out what this slope is, and they figure that the slope is going to be 3.8. So a lot of students actually just go from the slope formula right down to the final answer, which is 3.8, which is totally fine. And one thing that you could do to kind of figure out how to do this particular problem is you can use the equation of a line in point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals to m bracket x minus x1. All right, so basically your m value is going to be 3.8. All right, so that's going to be equal to 3.8 bracket x minus x1 all over y minus y1. Okay, so from there, I mean, what would you do next? Well, let's just say that we didn't have any of this data here. Basically, I know that we're looking for the fixed cost, right? So we're looking at this particular case here. So the number of widgets would be 0, right? So what you can do is you can take this 0 and plug it in for this x, right? Sorry, not my bad, sorry. That was just one step ahead. What we need to do first is we got to take one point at least. Let's take this point right here. We can label this as y1, and this could be x1. All right, so in order to continue my equation of a line, I can write y minus 2,140 equals to 3.8 times x minus 500. And our goal is we want to figure out what the y-intercept is, right? So let's just say x is 0, and we want to figure out what the cost will be, right? So what you can do now is you can take the 0 and plug it in for that x right there and solve for this y. Okay, so let's go ahead and quickly do that. So this would be y minus 2,140 equals to 3.8 times 0 minus 500. All right, so if you just like putting numbers into equation, this method could be useful. So 0 minus 500 is negative 500. And if I have my negative 2,140, I can simply just add that over here. So plus 2,140. Okay, if I do that, you can go to your calculator here and then add the 2,140, and you will also get 240 there, right? So there's another way to find the y-intercept if you want to use the equation of a line in point-slope form. Okay, great. Let's move on to question B now. Find an equation relating the cost of producing the widgets. Okay, so I know my slope from part A. I know the slope was 3.8, and I know the y-intercept. If I go back again, the y-intercept was 240, right? So finding the equation of the line isn't too hard. It's just y equals to mx plus b. And that means y would equal to a 3.8x plus 240. And I guess in order to kind of maybe add the variables here, I mean, I guess x would be, this would be your cost, and x would be the number of widgets. So maybe widgets plus 240. So that would be my cost equation there. Okay, let's move on to question letter C now. What is the total cost of producing 200 widgets? So I know my cost is going to be 3.8 W plus 240. And I have 200 widgets, so this will be 3.8 times 200 plus 240. And let's just go ahead to our calculator here. 3.8 times 200 plus 240, that's going to be about 1,000. So the cost will be $1,000. Okay, and finally, how many widgets can be produced for $7,308? Okay, so I know my cost is going to be equal to 3.8 W plus 240. All right, so the cost is now going to be $7,308 equals to 3.8 W plus 240. After that, I can subtract 240. And then I can subtract 240 over here. So $7,308 minus 240, that's going to be $7,068, and that's going to equal to 3.8 W. And then finally, mathematically, you can divide both sides by 3.8. Divide that by 3.8. That and that will cancel. All right, so W here. So 7,068 divided by 3.8, that's going to be 1,860. Okay, so we can make or buy 1,860 widgets when we have $7,308. Okay, so that's it for this homework video guide on section 5.4.